The Krail had won the war, or so they thought. 30 years had passed since they destroyed Earth and silenced the last human colonies. The galaxy moved on. No one had heard a human voice in decades. The stars were quiet. The Krail told stories of their great victory, how they had ended the most stubborn and dangerous species to ever rise. Their leaders celebrated, believing the humans were finished, gone forever. But deep in space, far beyond the Krail borders, something moved in the dark. Commander Jorkel sat in his warship, the Varnak, staring at a strange signal. It was weak, almost broken, but it was there. A short pulse, repeating every 6 minutes. Old code. Not Krail, not any known race. His eyes narrowed. He had studied Earth history. He knew this pattern. He remembered the way humans used to hide their messages inside noise. He leaned forward, almost whispering, This is human. His crew didn't believe him at first. Commander, said First Officer Rees, it's probably leftover data. Maybe from an old wreck. But Jorkel shook his head. No, this was sent recently. Someone is out there. Someone who knows human codes. He ordered a scout team to investigate. The others thought he was paranoid, but they followed his orders. The scout ship arrived 3 days later near the signal's source, a small asteroid field. Hiding between the rocks was an old space station. Its design was strange. Not Krail, not new. But metal, dark windows, no lights. But the signal came from inside. The team docked and entered. It was quiet. Too quiet. Dust floated in the air. Lights flickered for a moment as they stepped through the hallway. Then they stopped. The team moved deeper. Old human writing covered the walls, faded and cracked. The leader of the scout team, Officer Nan, touched a panel. It sparked. A screen lit up. A human face appeared, ghostly and pale. It stared straight at him. The message was simple. If you see this, then you should have finished the job. Panic spread. The signal stopped. The lights went out. The team tried to return to their ship, but something moved in the dark. Fast. Silent. One by one, the signals from the scouts vanished. Jorkel watched in horror from the command room as every tracker blinked out. Then the station sent one final signal, loud and clear, across all Krail systems. It was in English. We're not gone. We're just getting started. The Krail leadership tried to hide the message. They told the public it was a trick, a leftover human program from the past. But some of them weren't so sure. In secret, meetings were held. War councils, warnings, questions. If humans had returned, what were they planning? How many were left? And how had they survived? Commander Jorkel couldn't sleep. The memory of the human face on the screen haunted him. It didn't look afraid. It didn't look angry. It looked calm, too calm. Like a storm waiting to break. He knew how humans fought. They didn't come back to talk. If they were here, they had a reason. And if they were silent for 30 years, it meant they had been planning. Far from the Krail systems, hidden deep in a dead zone where scanners never reached, a massive ship sat in darkness. No lights, no signal. Inside, Captain Roan stood before his crew. He looked at the hologram of the Krail station his team had just visited. They found the bait, he said. They think it was a warning. Good. Let them worry. Let them wonder. His second-in-command asked, Do we strike now? Roan smiled. Not yet. Let them remember the fear first. Let them tell each other stories. And when they think it's all just a myth, he turned toward the stars. We'll remind them who we are. In the silence of space, the human fleet began to move. Not fast, not loud, but with purpose. The Krail thought they had ended the human race. But they were wrong. Humanity was still here. Hidden, angry, ready. And when they returned, they would strike like a storm. You said, the Krail leaders tried to stay calm, but behind closed doors, they were afraid. The message from the old station had shaken them. The words, "We're not gone. We're just getting started," were being whispered across military channels. Some believed it was a trick. Others believed something worse, that humanity had returned, stronger than before. Commander Jorkel was one of the few who took it seriously. He had seen the scout team disappear. He had seen the signal change just before the station shut down. And most of all, he remembered that human voice. Calm, confident. That was not a recording. That was real. He tried to warn the high command, but they didn't listen. "Even if they are alive," said one general, "they are few. Weak. No match for us." But while the Krill dismissed the danger, things were already changing in the shadows. In the cold dark of deep space, human ships were moving. Small, silent vessels. Black like shadows, built for stealth, slipped across star systems without a sound. They didn't attack cities. They didn't destroy bases. They hit where it hurt most: fuel stations, food convoys, weapon transports. Every time, the attack was fast and clean. They'd nothing. No trace. No message. Just silence. The Krell commanders were confused. Pirates, they said at first. Rebels. But Jorkel knew better. These attacks had human patterns. Hit fast. Vanish. No survivors. He called a meeting with his staff. "This is how humans fight," he told them. "We've seen this before. They don't hit where you're strong. They hit where you don't look, where you think it's safe." But the others still didn't listen. Far away, in a hidden base built inside an old asteroid, Captain Roan stood over a large map of Krail space. Dots lit up with every successful strike his team had made. Supply lines were breaking. Resources were getting tighter for the enemy. And they didn't even know who was doing it. His officers looked at him. "They're starting to panic," said one. Roan nodded. "Good. Let the fear grow. They made the mistake of thinking we were gone. Let's teach them why that was stupid." Meanwhile, Jorkel continued his own search. He began reading old human war files, learning their tactics, understanding their thinking. He became obsessed. He started tracking the pattern of attacks. And slowly he saw something terrifying. The attacks were moving inward, closer and closer to Krail's central space. This wasn't random. This was a plan. He went again to the High Council. "They're coming for us. We don't know how many there are. But they are organized, smart, and we are not ready." But once again, they laughed at him. "One man hears ghosts in the dark and calls it war," said the Chancellor. Jorkel walked out in silence, but in his mind he knew this war had already started. Back in space, another human operation began. This time, it wasn't a raid. It was a message. A Krell colony on the edge of the frontier went silent. No one knew why. A rescue team was sent to check. They arrived to find the colony untouched. No damage, no dead. But every computer had been wiped. And on the wall of the command center, written in red light, were just 2 words: "For Earth." Panic broke out. Now the Krell leaders couldn't hide it anymore. Something was happening. Something big. But still, they didn't know who was behind it. No ship had been seen. No enemy caught. It was like fighting ghosts. Inside the human fleet, Roan watched the news reports. He smiled. They're finally paying attention. One of his officers asked, "When do we hit them for real?" Roan turned slowly. "Not yet. Let them sweet. Let them fight shadows. When the time comes, we'll come like thunder." And so the galaxy held its breath. The Krail searched the stars, trying to find an enemy they couldn't see. Jorkel looked at the sky every night, waiting for the storm he knew was coming. And the humans, they were watching, planning, preparing. They hadn't just survived. They had changed. And soon, the Krail would see what happens when you try to kill a species that refuses to die. The Krail Empire was no longer calm. Fear had begun to spread through its people. Ships were going missing. Bases were attacked without warning. and no one knew who was behind it. But Commander Jorkul knew. Deep in his heart, he knew it was the humans. And he was sure of one more thing. They weren't just surviving. They were hunting. High Command still refused to listen. They called it coincidence. Bad luck. They said Jorkul had been watching old war videos for too long. But when another outpost went silent, one close to the home systems, they finally gave him a mission. Take your ship, find the truth, they told him. Prove it's not ghosts. Jorkul took the Varnak and flew toward the last known signal. It came from a moon station called Laral 7, used for fuel and repairs. It was quiet when they arrived. Too quiet. There was no signal, no response, no warning beacons, but the lights were still on. Everything looked normal. It didn't make sense. He sent a landing team inside. The halls were empty. Not damaged, just empty. The beds were made. Food sat untouched on tables. Screens still showed logs and files. It was like everyone had just vanished in the middle of their day. Then his team found something strange. One of the doors had been forced open from the inside. Not exploded or cut, just broken apart. Then they found the wall. Someone had burned words into the metal using high heat. It said, "This is your warning." And below it was a symbol, a circle with a line through it. The symbol of old Earth resistance forces. Jorkul felt cold in his chest. This was no accident. This was a message. Suddenly, the station lights went out. The team leader's voice came over the radio, panicked. "Something's here. I saw movement." Then the sound of weapons firing echoed through the comms. One scream, then silence. Jorkul shouted for them to respond, but there was nothing. One by one, their life signs vanished. He pulled his team back. Only one soldier returned, bloodied, eyes wide with fear. "They were fast," he said, shaking. "We didn't even see them. Just shadows, like ghosts." Jorkul asked, "What did they look like?" The soldier answered, "I don't know. But one of them whispered to me, said, 'We remember.'" Jorkul gave the order to leave. He didn't want to lose anyone else. As the ship pulled away from the moon, a message came through, an open signal. A human voice, speaking clearly. "You had your chance. Now it's ours." Back in Krail space, panic turned to anger. Military leaders started preparing for full war. They still didn't know how many humans there were, or where they were hiding, but they knew this was real. Fleets were called home. Defenses were increased. Propaganda filled the airwaves. Do not fear the past. The Krail remained strong. But behind the scenes, doubt spread like fire. And while the Krail built walls, the humans moved again. This time, they attacked a black site base, a place that didn't officially exist. A base where Krail scientists once studied human prisoners during the war. The entire base was destroyed in one strike. Not a single life form was left. Just one satellite survived, left spinning in space. On its surface was a simple carving, Justice. Captain Roan watched it all from his command ship. His officers reported success after success. The enemy was scared, confused, off balance. One of his soldiers asked, "Should we show them our full strength now?" Roan shook his head. "Not yet. We're still shadows to them. That fear is stronger than any weapon." He looked out at the stars. "They think we're ghosts. Let them keep thinking that. Because soon, they'll see the truth. And by then, it will be too late." At that same moment, Jorkul stood alone in his quarters, staring at old war footage. Human battles, human ships, human courage. He whispered to himself, they were never gone, just waiting. He looked at the stars and said, "What are you planning?" But deep in space, no answer came, only silence. And in that silence, something was coming. Something fast, something powerful. The Krail thought they had destroyed the human race. But the ghosts in the dark had returned. And now, They were preparing for war. The Krail Empire was tense. Fear had grown into full panic. Attacks were increasing. Ships were missing. Bases were falling. Every officer in the military now believed the same thing: humans were back, and they were fighting smarter than ever before. But no one knew where they were coming from. Commander Jorkel had become a problem for his own people. He was always asking questions, speaking warnings, pushing for stronger action. Some called him paranoid. Others called him brave. But Jorkel didn't care what they thought. He had seen the signs. He had heard the voices. He knew war was coming. A real war. And then it happened. The Krail lost contact with an entire fleet. 20 ships guarding the Zaan border. No warning. No distress signal. Just silence. When a search team arrived days later, all they found were pieces. Broken metal floating through space. Not a single body. Not one survivor. But they did find something else. A drone. Human-made. Still active. Still recording. Jorkel was called to investigate. He opened the drone's data core and found one message. Simple, cold, and terrifying. A human voice said, "We are not fighting for revenge. We are fighting to remind you, we never surrendered." Jorkel stared at the screen, heart pounding. The voice was calm, not angry. That made it worse. "They're not just attacking," he said to his crew. "They're sending a message. Every strike, every base they destroy, it's part of something bigger." He was right. Far beyond Krail space, Captain Roan stood before his fleet. Dozens of human warships now moved in silence, hiding in asteroid fields and dead zones. This was not the human race that the Krail had destroyed 30 years ago. This was something new, stronger, smarter, more focused. Roan looked at a glowing map of enemy territory. "They don't understand yet," he said. "They think we're ghosts or rebels. They don't know we've built an army in the dark. They don't know what's coming." Its officers waited quietly. Then Roan gave the order: begin Phase 4. Across the galaxy, human forces activated. One by one, key Krail defense systems were disabled. Satellites went dark. Supply stations exploded from inside. Communication lines dropped without warning. And then came the most dangerous move of all. A human team infiltrated a Krail war council. It happened on the planet Morat 2. The top military minds had gathered in a hidden bunker, deep underground. They thought they were safe. Guards stood watch. Shields were active. But it didn't matter. The humans didn't come in through the front door. They came through the floor. A single detonation shattered the room. In seconds, smoke filled the bunker. Panic. Screams. Gunfire. And in the middle of it all, a human soldier, wearing black armor with no flag, no name. Just the Earth symbol on his chest. He looked at the Krail generals and said one sentence before disappearing into the smoke. "You forgot who we are." The damage wasn't just physical. It was psychological. The Krail leaders had been attacked in their safest place. Now, no one felt safe. Not in ships, not in cities, not even in bunkers. And that's exactly what Roan wanted. "Fear makes them weak," he told his team. "They ruled with fear for years. Now they get to feel it themselves." But Roan also knew something else. The time for shadows was ending. Soon, the humans would have to reveal themselves fully. Soon, the Krail would see the face of the enemy they thought was gone forever. Jorkel saw it coming. He stood before the High Command one final time. "We must act. Now, not to fight them, but to prepare. Because if we keep denying what's happening, they won't just destroy our ships. They'll destroy everything." This time, no one laughed. The council sat in silence. And in that silence, a new signal came through. A live feed. Public. Open. A human fleet, fully visible, floating in Krail space. Dozens of ships, powerful, quiet, waiting. Then the message came. A human voice. Captain Roan. He said only 5 words. You started this. We finish it. And the feed went dark. All across the galaxy, alarms began to ring. The humans were no longer hiding. They were coming. And nothing could stop the storm now. The galaxy held its breath. The human fleet had revealed itself, openly, without fear. It floated at the edge of Krail space like a dark wall, unmoving, unstoppable. Krail sensors lit up with warnings. Civilian ships were told to retreat. Warships were called to the front. But deep inside, every Krail officer knew the truth. The humans weren't hiding anymore. They had come to end it. Commander Jorkel stood on the bridge of the Varnak, staring at the growing red lights on his map. Each light was a human ship. So many. Too many. How did they build this? One officer whispered. Jorkel didn't answer. He already knew. They built it in the shadows, he said softly. While we believed they were gone, they were preparing, watching, waiting. Then the alert came. The human fleet was moving. The Krail responded fast. Hundreds of ships formed a wall near the outer defense zone. Fighters launched. Cannons charged. The order was simple. Don't let them pass. But the humans didn't come in with chaos or panic. They came in formation. Clean. Controlled. Their ships didn't fire first. They just kept coming, slow, steady, confident. Then one Krail captain, too afraid to wait, opened fire. A single blast lit the darkness, and that was the mistake. The human ships responded instantly. Within seconds, their weapons lit up the sky. Bright blue beams sliced through the first Krail ships. Explosions filled the void. Fighters spiraled out of control. The Krail line broke before the battle had even started. On board the Varnak, Jorkel shouted orders. Hold the line. Protect the center. But it was no use. The humans didn't fight like before. They were faster. Smarter. Every move was like a plan already finished. Krail ships were hit from behind. Others were pulled into traps. And the human fleet kept pushing forward, like a storm that couldn't be stopped. From the lead ship, Captain Roan watched the battle without emotion. Push to their main command station, he ordered. Do not kill more than needed. This isn't about destruction. This is about truth. His officers nodded. They understood. The goal wasn't to burn everything. The goal was to end the war forever. As the human fleet broke through, Jorkel knew there was only one choice left. He sent a message, directly to the humans. An old signal code. One only they would recognize from the First War. It said, I am not your enemy. Let us speak. For a long moment, there was no answer. Then finally, a reply came. Captain Roan's face appeared on Jorkel's screen. You were the one who listened, Roan said. The only one who warned them. I know your voice. Jorkel nodded. You don't want genocide. Neither do I. Tell me what you want. Roan paused, then spoke slowly, clearly. We want peace, but not silence. We want justice. We want memory. We want the Krail to know we were never weak, never broken. You tried to erase us, and we came back stronger. Jorkel understood. This was not about power. It was about being remembered, respected, feared, if needed. He sent Roan coordinates for a peaceful meeting. And somehow, against all odds, the human fleet stopped its attack. Across the battle zone, silence returned. Wreckage floated in the dark. Flames flickered across broken hulls, but the war paused for the first time in decades. On a neutral moon, Roan and Jorkel met face to face. No weapons, no soldiers, just two leaders from two species who had been enemies for too long. Roan said, We don't want to destroy your people, but we won't ever kneel. Jorkel replied, Then let's find a path where no one kneels, but no one forgets. And so, for the first time since the old war, human and Krail leaders sat at the same table. Talks began. Words replaced fire. And while trust would take time, both sides knew something important had happened. The humans had returned not to die, but to show the galaxy what happens when you push a people too far, and they come back like thunder. The war was not over, but the storm had passed, and in its silence, a new future was born.